And we're live. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to a new panel hosted by the Blockchain Game Alliance. Today, we'll be discussing about a very interesting topic, a topic where I'm personally also involved with. So I will be a panelist on today's session together with great speakers from the video game industry. And this is a panel that will be hosted by Candice from NEWZOO, which is a company that's been producing a fantastic report about the metaverse. So we'll get a lot of insight and metrics and analysis as well on the topic during today's session. And we hope you get a chance to learn a lot from all the various speakers on today's session. Before that, I'd like to give a brief introduction of the Blockchain Game Alliance for those of you who are not yet familiar. This is, so we are the Blockchain Game Alliance. We are an organization that now counts more than 230 members. And the main objective is to promote the adoption of blockchain technology and its different use cases within the video game industry. So we often talk about non-fungible tokens, NFTs, decentralization, DeFi, DAOs, etc. What matters behind those words is more like what does technology enable for users and creators? So new ways to create, publish, play games, and also potentially build communities with the users. We provide an open forum for our members to be able to network, to generate business opportunity working together, to establish working group and keep researching through this new technology. And we're here to provide more visibility for all the different member companies, representing them, showcasing their product, bringing them more users, and of course, advocating for blockchain within the global game industry. I'd like to give a big thanks to our sponsors. So AMD, Enter Interactive, Splinterland, Ubisoft, Illuvium, Zaya, One Way Block, Fear, Mobox, Star Atlas, Gameloft, Vulcan Forge, Arc.io, Non-Fungible, Digital Entertainment Asset Group, GamerAsh, Tapped, IOI, TriumphX, Drops, Algorand, INRKX, Boston Protocol, Chromia, Polygon, Nexttype, Yushi, Animoca Brands, Contribute, Galaxy Interactive, Consensus, Tesos, HackerNoon, Polkadot, and Dap Radar for the extra support they give to the BGA. As you can see, we have many members from all the corners of the industry, games and gaming companies, chains and protocol, marketplaces, investors, development solution, press, media, esports, and many other companies that all using somehow blockchain technology and looking to and with evolving within video game industry. We do run many events, almost once or twice a week now, ranging from various interviews with industry leaders, workshops on various thematics, panels like today, where you get insight from people within the industry, new members presentation once a month. We also have the demo day, which is our most popular event, where people get to see the actual product live presented by the teams and get to see how it works, how it's implemented, and how they can use it. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce today our host first, Candice Mudrick from NEWZOO. She will be moderating the discussion, and I will give her the stage so she can introduce our speakers.
All righty, thank you very much, Sebastien. So today's panel, we will be talking to 4 different wonderful trend makers who are approaching the metaverse game worlds in different ways. So I would actually like to give everybody an opportunity to actually briefly introduce themselves, and then I will go into takeaways, 5-minute takeaways from NEWZOO's Intro to the Metaverse report, talking about consumer insights. So let's start with Patrick, if you want to briefly introduce yourself and your approach to the metaverse.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Patrick Buechner. I'm CMO for Manticore. I've been in the video game space for about, I guess since I was 15, and I ran an arcade in St. Louis. I've had the pleasure of working with a bunch of great teams and franchises like The Sims and Mass Effect and Star Wars: The Old Republic. Now I'm working for a team on a whole new level called Core. Core is a new platform that makes it easy for anybody to make worlds, games, experiences that are all interconnected. And they all can make money doing so. We've been in early access since April, and we've had tens of thousands of people making games. We've got millions and millions of players and games being played, and we are just getting started, and we're core.
All right, thanks for that. Let's kick it over to Oliver.
Hi, everyone. My name is Oliver Kern. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Lockwood Publishing. We're the makers of Avakin Life, a huge 3D virtual world. Quite different to some of our competitors, we're mobile first. Also, we're not about play, but rather like self-expression and lifestyle. So we therefore also reach into Gen Z and not so much into the kids of Generation Alpha. We work with lots of lifestyle and fashion brands, and we're going to maybe hear about that also a little bit, and have been doing music events actually in the virtual world since 2016. For us, the metaverse is something that is like deeply rooted in the real world, digitized entertainment, and fundamentally social. For the world to participate, therefore, this needs to be on mobile. Thank you.
Alrighty, and then we will go over to Ben, and probably Sebastien doesn't need to reintroduce himself, so we'll end with Ben.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here. I'm Benjamin, the co-founder of Darewise Entertainment. We're an independent development studio headquartered in Paris, but mostly present all across Europe, as we're quite distributed now with a very international team. We've been running since 2018. Basically developing what we like to call our take on the metaverse, which is a persistent open world called Life Beyond, where you will live an amazing journey with all the players around the world to heal a new planet and establish a new civilization there, and obviously socialize and potentially start making a revenue there. I was previously mostly known for being a game director at Ubisoft, worked on a couple of famous franchises like The Division and Assassin's Creed, and this is when I started reading Neil Stephenson literature and started dreaming about this beautiful next milestone for technology, which is the metaverse.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am going to start with the brief intro to the metaverse, consumer insights, takeaways. Just give me a second to share content, and we will look at how consumers have responded to our questions about the metaverse so far. Okay, I believe that this is working, so I'm going to move on until somebody tells me to stop. Right, so we at NEWZOO, we did a custom survey with about 5,500 online survey respondents spread evenly over 4 key markets, which is the US, China, Japan, and the UK. We asked consumers aged 14 to 50, and we asked these questions to both players and non-players, because we believe that one of the beautiful parts of the metaverse is that it can also interest non-players. And because the term is still very new, we did replace the term metaverse itself with a general description term related to using game or game-like worlds for the different activities, so that they could relate to it easier. Okay, what we found is that consumers are really excited about the metaverse, and that this excitement varies across countries, but China and the US are the 2 most likely countries to report being very interested, or definitely interested in hanging out in a game world and doing sort of metaverse-like things. If we look at the demographics, it is more common to see in the younger age ranges than in the older, which is not necessarily a surprise. And the gender balance is also mostly split, though a little bit more tilted in the male direction. We asked consumers about activities that they might want to do in the metaverse, and what we find is that the metaverse does represent a place where people mostly want to do similar things to what they're doing now. So getting together with friends and family is, for example, more interesting to people than watching a lecture or a speech or attending a flash mob or some sort of demonstration. But overall, consumers are quite positive about the idea of the metaverse and what it could offer. We asked a little bit more specifically about features that consumers might want in the metaverse, and the ability to choose an avatar's physical appearance is more highly regarded than avatar outfits, which you might see down here. And what kind of surprised us is that, well, consumers are also interested in free stuff. So they are excited about the idea of free content that might be funded by advertisers and sponsors, which is a really good indication for all the brands that are looking to get involved in the metaverse. So that's it very quickly. There are more insights in the intro to the Metaverse report. We are also releasing a free version next week, which will be a little bit cut down on content. But the headline findings that we saw is consumers in general are very enthused by the idea of the Metaverse. All ideas are good ideas. And there's an appetite to get involved and use games increasingly as a social platform, where the under 18 crowd is like twice as likely to want to do it as the over 34 crowd. So far, the enthusiasm does vary by market, with China and the US responding more positively than the UK and Japan. And we do see that consumers place importance on identity inside the metaverse. I think the fact that choosing an avatar's physical appearance, the fact that it came in as one of the most highly rated features, does speak to the idea that consumers see the metaverse as an extension of the real world, and therefore they place importance on their identity and their appearance in that world. And lastly, consumers like the idea of free stuff. So everybody likes the idea of free stuff. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. And by the way, if you are interested in metaverse content that we have right now, so far we do have an ecosystem diagram that you can download in a high resolution over on our website. I circled here the stakeholders that we're speaking to today, just to give you an idea of where they are placed differently in the ecosystem. So some are player first creation, some are dev first creation, some are centralized, decentralized, and some are hybrids, which don't necessarily fit nicely into our boxes, but maybe in a future version. Okay, so let's go to our first question, which is developer first content versus user generated content versus just in general, how do you populate content in the game, and what is your approach to that? So I'm going to start by asking Oliver about his approach.
Yeah, so I mean, we're interestingly enough in your report kind of categorized as like developer first content, and it's true. We definitely see ourselves as a studio that basically provides, I would say, like a playground for our users. So we do create, surely with a lot of partners, but we do kind of author and curate all the content that basically goes into the game, which doesn't mean that there is no user-generated content, because actually we do see this as I said, like a playground. And you know, I feel like the probably about 50 million video views on TikTok alone on the hashtag #AvakinLife per week kind of gives like credit that somehow people actually do use what we give them to actually create their kind of content. And we basically provide like a playground, a backdrop for role playing, a backdrop for kind of experiencing that kind of virtual world, and then doing things, creating music videos, creating stories, films, whatever. And you know, that's where we also see like a lot of power in terms of user-generated content.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that just because there's not necessarily UGC tools in it itself, it doesn't mean that the game doesn't have player-first experiences. So indeed, our diagram will use a little bit of updating next time. But so now I'd be interested to hear from Patrick on your approach with Core.
Our approach is to give everybody the tools to make games and worlds and experiences. So Core really has a set of tools that are very flexible and very easy to use. Depending on your expertise level, you can get very into like scripting and building game logic. But our philosophy is everybody has ideas for worlds and games that they want to create in their head, and that teams, there are teams working, 500-person teams working on MMOs for 8 years, and and they finally put out their experience, and maybe people like it, maybe they don't. What we think is that there are so many people with untapped ideas that they want to share with the world, or maybe just share with their friends. And we think core is one way that they can express themselves and build that content. So we think the metaverse is going to be built by millions of individuals and teams, not by individual monolithic companies.
Yeah, and your approach is user-generated content. Oliver has a user-first experiences, but a lot of developed content, let's say. And now let's go over to Ben, who may have a little bit more of a hybrid approach.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to hear all of these different directions, because I think they can all work together in a way. But I think our view at Darewise is that we believe in immersive worlds. We believe in creating worlds with strong lore and delivering a huge promise of escapism. So we build something that feels like a game first, and so this part is obviously intensively developer first, where we provide a lot of the content, but we think that today, especially when we think about Gen Z really takes for granted that it can have a sense of agency in the experience. Giving away some of the tools and really designing around these principles that even if I am within a game, within a lore, and that there are, I'm still part of my avatar is still a hero in a way, I still have the tools to create part of the experience and to impact the experience of other players. So yeah, I think we sit right in the middle right now, where we want to give some tools to the players to express their personality, their creativity within the lore of within a lore and within and still supported by a player fantasy and a power fantasy.
Yeah, I think a hybrid approach is really, really interesting, because it kind of lets you have the best of both worlds, hopefully. But there's another hybrid approach, which is what Sebastien over at the Sandbox is doing, which is something that we are going to term a combination of UGC and BGC, or brand-generated content. And now, Sebastien, I skipped over you a little bit for the intro in the first bit, but it would maybe be good to give a little bit of background on Sandbox, introduce yourself before going into the response.
Absolutely. So I'm switching hats here. No more the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance. I'm the CEO and co-founder at the Sandbox, which is a gaming virtual world that use blockchain technology and NFTs to empower players and creators, and essentially reward them for their time, for their engagement, the contribution they bring to the world, and allow them to truly monetize the content they create, such as the asset and the game experiences. We've been building Sandbox for more than 4 years now. It's shaping as a 3D multiplayer, multi-platform virtual world where we provide content creation tools as well. So we're all about user-generated content with hybrid approach. Provide creation tool with a 3D editor, allow you to make game asset animated, provide a marketplace where users can upload and trade, sell those content, and a game maker that allows to make a game experience without a single line of code, making it as accessible as possible. But besides providing tools for anyone to make games, experience, stories, adventure, anything you like, we believe that it's still important to show set some quality standards and demonstrate to the creators, to the user-generated content, what can be made. And that's why we decided to, one, support with our foundation about 50 game studios and projects to build with them. And second, to involve brands and IPs, such as by Walking Dead, The Smurf, Care Bears, Atari Roller Coaster Tycoon, and bring them into our metaverse and build experiences that will set new standards and offer fully built game by us and our team, or external game studio that will be funding, and also user-generated content where anyone could use the game asset from Walking Dead, the zombies, the character, to make their own stories, their own games with them, publish them on the platform as UGC branded game.
We're going to talk a little bit more about brands and games later, because I think like everybody here definitely has a strategy for incorporating brands in the game world. But for now, I will switch gears a little bit to talk about specifically blockchain and the use of decentralized infrastructure and technology versus not. So actually, first want to go over to Ben to comment on, you know, the benefits of being centralized versus decentralized. Does that distinction even make sense? What's your opinion on that?
So when you say centralized, to make sure I understand, you're talking about using blockchain versus using database, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's, to me, the way I appreciate things, and I can tell you how I used to think. You know, for me, not so long ago, blockchain was kind of using a hand grenade to kill a mouse. You know, it felt like so overkill for this sake. But to be honest, I completely changed my mind, because I realized this kind of sense of transparency that is required by our users, where they actually want to be able to. They want to feel that they can trust the information you're providing. When you say that this item is unique and has been crafted and is unique, especially because there are a lot of transactions happening, this requirement of trust is what, you know, it's basically the key factor for your economy, for your society to keep on going. And it feels like blockchain is actually providing this level of trust today. It is. I kind of want to say it is what it is. I think we were handling our database very well as well, but turns out players want to have a sense of trust that is stronger now that it's operating on a blockchain. And so we've been very happy to partner with a company called DMarket, who runs the marketplace for us, basically, where all of our items, every time a player crafts an item in the game, it gets tokenized and ends up on the Ethereum blockchain.
And Sebastien, I'm sure that you have a lot to say on this topic, right? So.
I have obviously a lot to say, but what's interesting is where I'm coming from. I'm coming from building a Sandbox franchise for more than 9 years, and it's been for 8 years essentially. Initially a mobile game, centralized, where users could upload their own creation to the gallery. It was a free-to-play game where, little bit like Benjamin was saying before, like all the content that was made by them was centralized. All the virtual items, like the element, the characters they used to create the game, they purchased with virtual currency, and they couldn't monetize, sell, transfer to another users outside of the application on marketplaces that we do not control. So in a sense of like, in a permissionless manner. So beside the trust, also the fact that they do not ask all the time permission to a developer to do things with the content. And in the end, they truly own the content that they bought because they spent real money for acquiring those items. So why wouldn't they be able to actually convert it back to fiat or send it to another users without having to go through the hassle or complex procedure or not even be capable of? So when we saw the first CryptoKitty, the first CryptoPunk, already 4 years ago at the end of 2017, we saw the potential of applying a technology, NFTs, that allows to tokenize any game item and provide the trust through the transparency and the proof of ownership, the idea of ownership, that users could own their asset, their game asset, and do what they want with them without us defining that. And that's been usually successful and proving and more today a business model where there are external marketplaces where users can exchange, sell those items. There is a thriving ecosystem where more developers could actually implement additional utility and use case for those game assets. And it's quite interesting to see that it's not just theoretical, but it's already happening in the space, that people can develop business model, can develop new startups, new service around the game asset from an original game platform such as Sandbox. And I can speak hours about lands, for example, but it's one of the most common examples we're seeing now, typically.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing Oliver's opinion next, actually, and what I want to know specifically is I'm actually curious about the gray, if you're aware of gray market activity for like Avakin Life, and how much trading of the in-game items that are you aware of that maybe happens currently outside of the game? And then, so after that question, then just generally, what is your feel or opinions about NFTs and the use of blockchain in gaming?
Yeah, I mean, there is with every game at scale, there is a gray market. I mean, I was CMO at Jagex, and RuneScape at its height had like massive issues even with that. I mean, I remember you could buy like a party hat or the Christmas hat for like $500. Obviously, the way how people sold items back then was they basically transferred the account, right? So it was basically the account was kind of the wallet, and you basically sell the whole thing with the value that is in there, and that may have had like one super valuable asset, etc., in there that you would then sell with the account. So, or you had to kind of set up something. I mean, initially it was even easier because you could kind of exchange that and basically drop it somewhere, somebody else would pick it up. Then as a company, we said like, no, we don't want that. So then we kind of stopped that, like the free trade, so to say. And then, yeah, people then started just kind of exchanging accounts. So there has always been a way to kind of accommodate for that, I would say. And yeah, it's kind of embracing that market, I think, with kind of blockchain technology and kind of accessing or enabling those kind of external markets. I think it will also have its own challenges at scale, and people will gamify and try to find their own ways to kind of play the rules. So it's not all golden and great, I would say, because it's obviously even more an incentive to kind of find ways to kind of, well, in their own means, you wouldn't call it hacking, but in their own means to kind of somehow trick the systems, so to say. So I think it will just face different challenges, but the moment there is real money involved, obviously it can become quite tricky. That's kind of what I see.
Yeah, and I guess the impact is to the game economy. You kind of have to redesign the game economy to account for official trading, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for us, we're very, very, very cosmetics driven in that sense, right? So then, it would be kind of not even that difficult if we would say like, okay, we would do that. It wouldn't. We're not really a game in that sense. We're much more of a platform for kind of social experiences, and therefore kind of all the 20-odd thousand items that we have, we could, in theory, obviously, tokenize them and do something there. It wouldn't change the game economy. For some games, it would be devastating, obviously. For us, I wouldn't see such a big problem, but we're still a bit on the fence, I would say.
All right, and let's go over to Patrick for his viewpoint.
Yeah, well, Core isn't using blockchain or NFTs at the moment, but I think we can all agree that one of the requirements for the metaverse is having a secure economy where creators and players can engage in it and trust it. Our perspective is that we want to create a system where creators can earn money, earn a living from creating the games and worlds and experiences that they invest time in. And we think that by giving them a lot of flexibility on how they monetize their games, whether it be like a subscription or boosts that you might get on experience or whatever they can come up with, they could add those types of systems to their games and their worlds. And by having that built into the economy, we think that is going to encourage them to create more games. But again, it has to be safe and secure. Our platform is all self-contained. So at the moment, we haven't seen the need in our space for blockchain or NFTs, but it is something that we're investigating.
I think after the boom of Q1, everybody's investigating NFTs right now, right? So, okie dokie. Yeah. Any final comments? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next question. No. Oh, so Sebastien, I know you're going to say something.
At least this opening mentality is about like appreciating that digital asset and ownership of asset by players is important. It's evaluated. It has value. It can hold value, and it's opening the gate behind to a whole digital economy of services for creators, for players to monetize their time and engagement on different virtual worlds, which builds that concept of metaverse.
I certainly am looking forward to building up my digital closet. Haven't done so yet, but soon. Once it gets easier.
And make money out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're going to talk about brands and IP in the metaverse. I think this is, brands are always obviously very interested in reaching gamers, and game developers in turn are very interested in incorporating brand experiences. I think in general it can be a win-win situation, though it can also go wrong if it's done poorly. So I'd like to ask the panel, what is the right way for brands to get involved, and maybe what are some of the things that you are doing in your game world to incorporate brand experiences in a gamer-friendly way? So with that, let's start with Patrick.
Yeah, it's brands have been trying to figure out how to get into games for ever since I've been in games in an authentic way, and I think the metaverse itself opens up the possibility of authentic and interesting engagement that you've never seen before. Like back in the day, like a Need for Speed would have billboards with ads on them, which was kind of authentic because when you drive around town, you see billboards. Gamers didn't like that much. And I think in the end, what you need to do is provide value to the gamer, and it needs to feel authentic and real and fun and engaging to be a benefit to both the brand and the player. What we're also trying to do is at Core is to integrate brands into the creative process as well. So one of the things we like to do is give brands. And we look to partner with brands that like to do things with the creators on our platform. So we did something with Dungeons and Dragons not too long ago, where we partnered with Wizards of the Coast to allow our creators to make MMOs, D&D type adventure games, anything that they could actually imagine. We had RTS, we had platformers, all sorts of things that took the D&D brand in different ways. And it was just a way for people to engage with the brand in a whole new way as creators and players. We've got one coming up, which we just announced last week with Deadmau5, the electronic music performer and creator. He came to Core. He knows how to. He's a developer himself. His background is actually in computer animation before he got into electronic music, and super technical guy, obviously very creative. And he was looking at what was going on in our platform and is like, man, wouldn't it be great if the creators on Core could actually get together and help build the content for his next music video. So we have a game jam going on right now, where people are building dystopian worlds in Core, and Deadmau5 is going to take that content and use it in the next music video he's producing. So it's almost a different approach to not just being in the brand, but also doing things outside of the game universe itself.
Yeah, I, for one, am super excited about that project engagement. Right. So that it's really interesting that Core is taking this more active approach, which gives a little bit more agency to gamers, and there's other ways, obviously, of getting brands involved as well. So Sebastien, again, with the brand generated content, and I would argue also Patrick also has brand generated content in Core. What is your approach to engaging with brands in the metaverse?
Well, at Sandbox, we have more than 165 IPs, brands, and partner already as part of our metaverse. Those IPs, I named a few before that include Walking Dead, I include Charbit, also include music artists. We got Deadmau5, which is great, and it has collaboration across multiple virtual worlds, Richie Otin, Atari, etc. And I think for us, the importance of brand is twofold. The first one is like they bring culture into our virtual world. So they bring point of reference, thing that players are familiar with. So when they arrive into a virtual world, instead of being a space that's empty and where they need to learn new referential, they find the characters, the stories, the element that they're already familiar with, and they are naturally inclined to get closer with their avatar to those places, to socialize with other players who are fans, so the communities behind those brands, and start interacting with other users based on that. And then the cherry on the top of the cake, I would say, is like user-generated content. Again, like brands have been looking for such a long time on how do we leverage UGC the best. They've tried that with YouTube, with Facebook, etc. But with video gaming, that's really the best way of expressing that creativity and allowing your fans, your users to create new content, leveraging like the key elements of the brand, creating more stories, creating more games, and very often much better than any internal team you have, even the most senior guys could do. And that's what we are seeing when we run game jam as well. Like the quality of the content is just amazing, what folks can do, and sometimes it's, and you at scale, like you cannot beat millions of people producing UGC content with a team of like 10, maybe 100 people internally. So that's something we're seeing across also Minecraft, Roblox for almost 15 years now. So that's how we implement brands. The novelty of, again, back to the idea of adding NFTs on top of that is like enabling brands to also offer value to their fan and create more like community, a closer bond of community between like creators and brands by removing a lot of all the intermediary in the middle that take the value away from the creator.
And what I'm curious about, and sure I'll go to Oliver next, is it's really easy to create content that gamers want to engage with if it's something exciting, like let's say The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones. But is there an opportunity for a company, let's say like the insurance industry, to equally be able to get involved in a way that's authentic and exciting for gamers?
I think there absolutely is. I mean, I think brands have been a little bit cautious with games. First, it was like this stigma of like, oh yeah, this is just the boys, so to say, world. That has kind of evaporated, I would say. Then there is always kind of the concern around brand safety, especially if you kind of allow people to do all sorts of things with a brand, right? And it's understandable. I mean, if you have like a big brand, you do want to kind of make sure that not something bad PR-wise happens with your brand. So you kind of have to kind of make sure that you give a certain level of safety. But what I think all brands have realized over the last probably 3, 4, 5 years is that that generation, that younger generation, you just will not reach them anymore through the traditional channels. And it's not about just slapping some logo somewhere or something like that. What people are, what that generation is actually looking for is they're looking to kind of experience that brand, and it's all around that. And games can definitely do a wonderful job there. It's obviously a little bit more bespoke, so brands are always like, should we really do this? It's a big project, so to say, but it pays off so much because you can create like millions and millions and millions of hours of brand engagement that at least with games at scale that you just will never ever get from like even like some TV commercial unless you pay like a lot of money. So I think it's definitely much better value for money if you're trying to kind of attract that younger demographic to build experiences. In what way, that's to be seen. It can be like we do that with some external parties, some other studios that basically create those experiences with the brand. It can be, as Patrick was pointing out, with like gamers or creator teams or these kind of things can have all sorts of dimensions that I think it's up to the appetite of the brand. They're obviously looking for something at scale, and preferably at large scale, global, etc. Because that obviously has the biggest impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw some of the numbers from Avakin Life and the engagements. You will never get that engagement elsewhere. So it is really cool to see that brands are more and more interested, in fact, in building their own content in game worlds and creating authentic engagement experiences. Now Ben, so with Life Beyond, it's more of a narrative title so far. More of an MMO where there's a little bit less open space to integrate real brands than there would be, say.
And you would be surprised.
So that would be my question.
The thing is that I agree 100% with everything that's been said. So maybe I can bring a different perspective, which is, so far we've been talking a lot about the brands in direction to consumers. But what is interesting is that these brands also want to exist as companies with their own team. That's so we have, of course, way less distance right now from the topic because we're earlier stage than most of you guys, but we've actually secured our first pretty substantial B2B contract. What is interesting is that the way we start this interaction with brands right now is to give them a space in our world so that they can gather and they can experience stuff. So I think a lot of companies now also have this intention to have a digital presence in some of those virtual spaces for their own team members. So it's very interesting because I think it also gives a breadth of opportunities for brands to not only talk to consumers, but also talk to, and sometimes they have really big audience. When you're Coca-Cola, you have tens of thousands of employees in the world, right? So it matters that you also know how to talk to this very unique type of audience, and we're just experiencing it firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're only starting to see the very beginning of the brand explosion in the metaverse, and there are a lot of companies that are helping brands to build their own experiences in the ad tech and marketing section. There's a lot of, if you're a brand out there that's watching and you're interested in getting involved, I highly suggest reaching out to either one of these fine folks directly or to read more about the ad tech companies in this space that can very easily help you to create 3D assets in games. Okie dokie. So we have about 15 minutes left now, and I actually think that that's a great time to go to Q&A. So I'm going to call out a few of the questions to address. And starting with, I saw that there was one about the Metaverse report for me that says from Dell's Ernie, please forgive me, Ernle, please forgive me for that. The Metaverse report said that users voted at least for buying avatar clothes. I believe that if it was framed differently, they would have voted more because users typically never want to buy anything. So the one thing that I would say is that remember that the survey was asked to not just gamers, but it also gamers and non-gamers. I think if you narrowed in on the population that was also asked to gamers, that they would also say that they would be more interested in buying clothes than the current non-gaming consumer population. So we wanted to capture even non-gamers' interest in doing metaverse-like activities, and I think that's why that it didn't show up as high as it typically would for gamers.
We have about 2.8 million transactions per day on clothes. So I think we definitely have a lot of people that buy clothes. That I can definitely say.
And remember that it's not that they said they weren't interested. It was it's a scale of and to be fair, all of it was still high interest in doing sort of everything in the metaverse, including clothes and assets and etc. Okay, so the next question, which is for the panel, could you discuss a bit more on how much the dev teams are focusing on interoperable assets? What's the potential timeline to port a single NFT across the metaverse? This is a question from FUD 0. Who would like to take that?
Okay, so we have a little foot in the space, obviously, since we're definitely involved into NFT and so on. But maybe at the high level, I believe there is the Open Metaverse Consortium. That's an initiative that's trying to enable the centralized virtual worlds to have some sort of interoperability among themselves. That's an initiative that's not relying on blockchain, it seems, so it's hard to define like where they are. I'd love to have some feedback if any other speaker knows more. On our side, since we are building in the space of blockchain, interoperable asset, we have taken the approach to be really that open NFT metaverse, like allow anyone to make their NFT with Sandbox, use them with our game maker, but also allow anyone to use them the way they want outside in any other NFT-based app. But we also want to give life and allow users to interact with their NFT, like the one that were made outside of Sandbox, whether it's crypto art, whether it's sport collectible. So think about like your crypto kitties, like digital cats on the blockchain that are for now just images, but could be turned into 3D pet companions into Sandbox virtual world. And we do that, and we have decided to prioritize it more specifically toward something called avatar collections. Essentially, CryptoPunks, if you're familiar, Meebit, Borget, those are 2D images stored on the blockchain that many influential people are now using as their social avatar picture over Twitter, etc. And they are just images. But still, they define the identity of people. Like they are unique, they are valuable, and people like to be part of the community, own one, and use it as their representation. So we want to enable inside Sandbox more interactivity by giving them a matching 3D representation that's a game character already rigged. So it is animated, it is ready to move, to talk, to interact, to jump, to fight, to kill enemies, and to do many other things that games enable. Offering a matching representation, then and increasing the utility and potentially the value of that NFT, because from just being a 2D image collectible, it now becomes your avatar representation, your identity into the metaverse, and that identity can be used in Sandbox, but in any other NFT-based decentralized virtual world as well. So that's, we think, the main approach that will break through before gaming items, focusing on the avatar, if we really believe into the self-sovereignty of users and avatar as identity into virtual world.
Sure. And Sebastien, you have a follow-up to that? Or sorry, Benjamin.
I think that there is what Seb is talking about is obviously like a huge step. Where one day we will have interoperability of all of these assets, but I think I believe that it's going to take some time, and that I see an intermediary step, which is developers, operators of those virtual worlds, kind of in a multiverse way, partnering, and starting to build some relationship. I had a chat with Seb, 2 months ago, and obviously we're going to keep talking. We're currently partnering with another NFT-based gaming experience to actually have assets that will cross our world. But see, right now it's a very ad hoc base. Those are very bespoke partnerships that we're creating, and I just think that obviously this is not the ultimate. This is not the end game. The end game is to go way beyond that, but we need to have a standard. But I think in the meantime, we still need to start building those use cases so that our users start to get used to that, to get the benefit of getting attach and building of value in these assets and being able to enjoy them across multiple experiences. So that's what I see as a critical but an intermediary step that, on a case-by-case basis, developers, operators start to build these partnerships.
Yeah. Thank you. And for the next question, it is, how do you guys see advertising in the metaverse? It has, I think, a good potential. For example, a company can buy a virtual billboard on a spot where many players are going by. not sure if there is something like that. And this is a question from Aloe. So over to Patrick for this.
Well, I think a billboard is probably like the old school way of advertisers integrating into video games, and probably the least interesting idea. I think the stage that we're at right now is experiences and games and content from brands, and that's allowing gamers to interact kind of authentically and naturally, and in a way that they don't even think they're being advertised to, and is beneficial to both the brand and the gamer. I think the next step is probably where brands themselves are going to be creating, even not even with like the consent or in partnership with a multiverse platform. Like, you can imagine somebody coming to Core, a brand coming to Core, and just starting to build content there without us having to partner with them. We have our own, an economy that they can tap into if they want, and we don't have to be there building pieces of games or experiences with them. I think ultimately that's where we'd love to see the multiverse is brands come in, advertisers come in, and they do their own thing without us having to get involved.
And we have another question from Zach, who asks, there are now a number of competing companies and games trying to build what seems the ultimate metaverse. Do you see these metaverses coalescing, or will there only be one winner in the space? I think everybody probably has a little bit to say on that, so I'm going to pass it around the room. Let's start with Oliver.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe in the ultimate winner there. I'd hope, if so, that it would be maybe Epic Games, but let's see. No, I think it will always be like lots and lots of different experiences. I think Seb was kind of referring to that. I think it is really the digital identity in its heart, like the avatar, that digital identity, probably also kind of the friends that you're connected to, that kind of needs to kind of be something that you own with all the assets, etc. But you should be able to kind of bring that into like the different experiences, because I don't believe that any company can be that ultimate ruler and kind of provide everything, even with all the users that are creating that content, etc. I don't really see that. I'll be very
honest. Ben, what do you think?
I totally agree. It's to me, it's like if you're telling me you can only go to one restaurant. Thank God we're not in Demolition Man. Where only Pizza Hut survived the restaurant war. So there are obviously so many different flavors through all of these experiences, and I think the beauty today is the breadth of experiences, the opportunity to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Our responsibility, I think, our mission as developers, publishers, operators, is to facilitate the interaction between all of these platforms. And when you raise money and people are asking, so what's your competitive landscape, and who are you stealing users from? I kind of find that it's a very surprising question, because right now that we see that the market is so deep that I don't think it, except maybe when you're Fortnite, and then anything that takes away some time of your player is a competition. But aside from this complete outlier, I think, again, there will not be an ultimate experience. It will be probably the ones who will survive best will be the ones who will try to kind of pay forward, this friendly relationship building with other companies.
All right, Patrick, agree, disagree?
Well, I totally agree. I mean, personally, I play all sorts of games on all sorts of platforms. I do think what we're creating on Core is, and other metaverse platforms have to think about, like, there are places where people go to not just go play games now. There are also places where you go to hang out and invest time in. And so it may be that the number of experiences that one person can go to is shrinking because they're spending more time in specific locations with their friends and hanging out. So I do think that that's something that that is a consideration. I don't think that there will be one monolithic multiverse, metaverse in the short term. But I do think that the creators like Core need to think about like how do you build something that will satisfy not just their game playing, but also their social experiences, their entertainment experiences, and their gaming experiences in one place. And that's kind of our philosophy, is to give all those types of experiences in one place to them. Yep.
And finally, Sebastien, but I'm going to throw in another question, which is kind of related, which is about, so do you see metaverses, not just converging to one thing, but also expanding to other devices like mixed reality glasses?
Right. But to the first question, obviously, we do believe that the metaverse exists, and specific decentralized metaverse makes only a meaning if there is something to be decentralized. Like if there's only one place where everyone goes, there's no meaning to try to take your asset away, your identity, and transport it across many places. So it's in the plurality of those virtual worlds, the multiplicity of experiences and communities that maybe if you want to do more music-oriented event, you will be going into one. But if you're more into gaming or yoga or birthday parties, you go to another, and so on. And there's no one size fits all, and that's not going to be how we envision it either. There's also an experience about platform and devices. That some metaverse are indeed more specialized into VR. They will be more immersive, and you will feel it with your body, whereas some other are more meant to be played on the go, in the subway, in the toilets, if you want. Why not? You keep the experience and shorter session, and some will be like web-based, we call it lo-fi, like very low friction to access, but also less realism, less graphic quality, and so on. High fidelity is full immersion, high graphics, Unreal, usually built using Unreal technology, and something in the middle that Sandbox is more trying to be, which still require installing a game client like Roblox, but has higher end graphics than Roblox or Minecraft. So it needs everything for all tastes and all devices.
Speaking of that, there was an earlier question asking, and by the way, this will be the last question, asking about that most metaverse apps run only on desktop or web-based. When do you intend to extend to mobile-only gamers? And I think Oliver is the right person to answer this question.
Yeah, well, we're mobile first, right? So we really kind of, historically, Lockwood was building content for PlayStation Home, which in a way, it was an opportunity probably at the time for Sony to kind of really own the metaverse, but they didn't. They basically closed it down at some point. But yeah, it was definitely like it was the decision to say like, okay, mobile, free to play. The devices are now, that was 2013, like at a state where you can actually do something with 3D. So we kind of said like let's go there, and it's definitely paid off big time. I think the other way around, to go from very high HD etc. to something mobile will have a lot of challenges for lots of people. So but yeah, as we said, I think the panel is quite in agreement there. It's like also different experiences for different people. So I think it all has its place, but yeah, mobile. Roblox, we're mobile first, etc. So I think there are enough examples of kind of mobile first kind of metaverse experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another game that I just started playing recently. I'd like to shout out to. That is also another metaverse game on mobile. It's called Play Together from a Korean developer, Hagen, and they are also doing a mobile first experience. Okay, so that's a wrap, and we are landing right at 7 p.m., which is fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. And I'm not sure if Sebastien, if you'd like to say any last words to close this out.
But thanks everyone for participating in this discussion. I hope that people who were live with us or we watched the replay get deeper insights, deeper insights about what we are all building, our approach, the fact that we're all in agreement towards where we're going, and how much time we will take to get there. We'll see. That's I think the main question. And in the meantime, I really encourage everyone to go and play, discover whether Core, whether Avec in Life, or the game of Benjamin as well. That will, I think, are you launched already, or you're still in the beta stage?
We're in closed alpha, but hey, we have a wait list. But if you pray strong enough, sometimes you get in.
And yes, like if you were curious, like jump in the space. The metaverse is the future. Is going to create jobs, create new opportunities, let you socialize, interact, do more than games. Actually, we all agree on that. And thanks, Candice, for running this discussion today, and obviously the report. We're all looking forward to the free version, I think. So when is it going live?
Thursday next week is the launch date. So just
all right. So we'll make sure that to distribute it, so we educate more and more people about what but many other companies that actually you also interviewed and are contributing to the space.
Thank you very much, all.
Thank you, everyone. You have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you. Thank you. See you in the verse.